Well, welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt, and today I am here with Scott Deley. He's coming to us from the UK, so we're crossing the pond today, which is one of those miracle things you can do with Zoom. And I want to dig in with him today on his new book. When I was at Pizza Expo the last couple of weeks, we connected there, but the thing that really I guess I wasn't expecting, the one most surprising thing at Expo that I saw was the large presence of the Ooni oven. And
Yeah.
Scott is a brand ambassador and the author of a new book, The Ooni Pizza Project, which you can also track on Scott's Instagram. It's Scott's Pizza Project, I think, is the at Scott's Pizza Project on Instagram, and we'll hear more about that in a second. But that's what I want to hear about, Scott. You've written this book. I want to love to find out how you became a brand ambassador for them and came to write this book, and what else. Give us a little bit of sort of the backstory of how this all came to be.
Okay, well, yeah, so it all started, well, it was the first lockdown of the recent pandemic. So it was April 2020, so pretty much three years ago this week is when I got my first pizza oven, my Ooni pizza oven. I got it for a birthday present. And it's a funny story, really, because I'd never really had any interest in making pizza before that. So it was a very random gift, which took me by surprise.
A lot has happened in 3 years, 3 short years from just starting your first to having a beautiful book loaded with great photos, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty fast work.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, to say the least. Yeah, so I just got really. I think the words I used in the book, it ignited a passion I didn't realize that I had. So, like I say, previously I'd never really made a pizza or had any interest. I've always enjoyed eating pizza, but there's not been.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah, there was obviously something in there that getting my Ooni pizza oven just started off, and then yeah, I just got really into it, and I think it helped having like a because I worked my full-time job. I worked throughout the lockdowns and the pandemic, so but I had doing the pizzas with the pizza oven. I think it gave me a bit of an escape from what was going on in the world at the time. So it
Are
was
you
quite.
still working? Do you still have what we'll call a day job, or are you
Yeah.
now full-time Ooni ambassador out there?
No, I'm very much still working full time. So my pizza stuff is still very much in the hobby category, really. So I tend to do it at weekends if I can, but it's quite difficult juggling everything because I'm married with a 12-year-old daughter as well. So juggling everything is quite difficult. But
A full life, and again, as you said, you weren't really. It's not like you've been playing around with pizza for the last 10 years and finally kind of made a breakthrough. You just jumped into the deep end, when, as we say, went down the rabbit hole,
yeah,
and but
I'm still
very
going.
quickly started putting out, looks like, some extraordinary pizzas. I mean, the pizzas in your book, if in just the short amount of time that you've had to not only write the book, but kind of develop this whole menu, these are beautiful pizzas. And how did that come together, and how long did it take you to kind of figure out your techniques?
Yeah, so well, I think it's the type of personality and person that I am. Like when I do something, I like to do a lot of research before I actually to do it. So it wasn't a case of me getting the oven 3 years ago and just getting it out of the box, starting it up, and just going for it. I did a lot of research into it, really YouTube, really, and using like the stuff that Ooni had out there as well. Because I didn't have any Instagram account or anything at this point. This was very much, I was just making a couple of pizzas for the family at the weekend, and then I just got a real thirst for it, and I thought for my first few pizzas that I made, like I thought they were pretty good, and like they were like nothing I'd ever tasted before, really.
Interesting.
So yeah, and it just evolved from there, and I just put more research into it. Started my own Instagram account, which is the Scott's Pizza Project, which you referred to.
Yeah. So you kind of can chronicle the progress of your
Yeah, very much so.
evolving
Yeah,
pizza work. Yeah.
and that's when it really lifted and kicked off. Really, I got a lot of growth very early on that, and connected with a lot of people, and just kept going at it and trying different things and making mistakes as you have to do.
Yeah, of course. Is there a network of people out there? I mean, does Ooni have a site where people who like you are kind of enthusiasts and not professionals, but enthusiasts are communicating with each other and sharing knowledge? Is that how you kind of pushed yourself up to the next rung?
Yeah, massively. The online community, particularly on Instagram. I don't. They've got Facebook pages as well, but I was very much honed into the Instagram side of it because I liked getting the photos out there, and showing what I was doing and documenting the things I was doing. So yeah, I quickly started connecting with thousands and thousands of other people that were the same as me, doing the same thing and trying to learn and get better. And I've made a lot of friends through it. A lot of them who I've never met before.
Yeah,
Uh,
you kind of
but
stumbled into your own tribe of
yeah,
fellow Ooni, users, but and that of course goes beyond Ooni. Then I'm sure that there's other
yeah,
people writing to you who are using something else. Maybe they have a rock box, or maybe they have nothing. Maybe they're baking in their home oven. Um,
yeah,
so
very much so. It's not like you say, it's not just narrowed to the model of oven you're using. It's very much a broad community that everyone helps each other and connects with each other. And but like I say, a lot of the people who I consider as very good friends who I've never met. I mean, I met quite a lot of people at Expo, like when
yeah,
we met for
yeah.
the first time,
That's
which
what I was
was
going to ask you is what your experience was like at Pizza Expo, coming across being, first of all, I was stunned to see what a big presence Uni made from being a few years ago, pretty much, sort of under the radar, sounded like sort of a fun hobbyist tool. And then suddenly becoming, they had a booth at Expo. They had people working in the booth, making pizzas. They had all these brand ambassadors, walking around. What was that like?
yeah, it was a very surreal. I mean, I loved it. It was a brilliant experience, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it. But it was very, very surreal. Like walking into the big arena for the
Yeah.
first was very. I was kind of like in awe of everything. It was just a moment of. I remember walking in on the first day when it first opened and just standing there and looking around, thinking because I had no idea of the scale of it. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just enormous.
It's stunning. I
But
mean,
yeah,
you wouldn't think that the 10,000 people would show up for a pizza themed event, but it's
yeah,
everybody. It's just like I say, the larger tribe of pizza freaks, that all
yeah.
gather, and then the subgroups within that, and uh, any surprises? Did you work in the booth, by the way? Were you making pizzas as in their booth?
Yeah, I got involved in doing like a live demo. Like it was really good. There was quite a few of us who were there, and then we just kind of like all got involved and started making pizzas and showing the public how to use the ovens, and it was really good. And like I had the other objective of trying to sell my books as well while I was there.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I say, it was just a fantastic experience, and I had a really good time.
Did you get a chance to watch some of the pizza competition that was going on and see what was happening over there and get any ideas from what you saw?
Yeah, I did. The first day, I mean, I think I was only there for the first 2 days of the expo. I didn't catch the last day because I had to fly back. But the second day, I spent a lot of time at the competition area because I was with a few people who were actually competing themselves. So it was really great to watch them compete and like cheering them on, and we were doing Instagram live videos like all of us together. It was really good. But yeah, watching people compete, it shows there's like a serious element to it as well, especially when the Neapolitan pizza competition started. That was quite a shift in the environment. It got quite serious, like really quickly.
Oh yeah. Well, when there's prize money involved and
Yeah,
bragging rights and all sorts of, and trips to Italy and all sorts of things, there's a lot at stake in these pizza competitions. And I've had a chance in the past to be a judge. So
yeah,
me, it's a great way to see kind of like what are some of the new coming trends that might not be mainstream yet, but will happen in the future.
yeah. Because two of the guys I was with were competing in the non-traditional category. So that is literally do anything you want. Like, so
Yeah.
it was something that was really not good to watch. Like some of the different things that people were doing and the different styles. There was a lot of Detroit styles going into the competition and pan pizzas. But yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed it, and I liked the watching the demos as well. So I managed to get to Tony Gemignani's and John Arena's demo,
Fantastic.
and he was brilliant. He was very kindly asked me if I wanted to sell copies of my book after his demo alongside him selling all his
Wow.
merch.
How nice. Were you
Yeah,
able to
that
do
was
some books? Was the merch table working for you?
yeah. I've gifted quite a lot of books. It was
Fantastic.
yeah. So I mean, standing next to Tony
Yeah.
selling my book was quite a very surreal moment, and it made me laugh. Tony had to give me a bit of a pep talk. He'd told everyone about my book during the demo, and then we were both stood there, and there were queues of people, and I was standing there a bit like rabbit in the headlights,
Yeah.
and Tony.
It'd be like a local band standing next to Bono's, selling their CDs.
Tony like gave me a nudge and said, "Come on, you need to sell yourself."
There you go. Well,
Yeah,
that's it. And he's a great mentor for that kind of stuff. He's taught a lot of people how to kind of come out of their shell, so to speak, and stand up there and own it.
yeah, he's been a fantastic help for me. I managed to meet him last year when I went to San Francisco on holiday, and since then he's just been like we've stayed in contact, and it was his idea for me to sell books alongside him. So he really helped me, and such a generous
Yes.
person with his time.
Yes, he is really generous and has helped a lot of people, and it's great that you were able to connect with him. While you were there watching the competition, any thoughts about possibly entering next year?
Yeah, a few people asked me about that. I think I would like to do it at some point. Maybe whether or not next year, whether or not I can get out there next year, because obviously
Yeah, so
it's quite
it's a big commitment to fly all the way over and then spend a few days in Las Vegas. It's a lot of money involved, if nothing else. When we come back from the break in a few minutes, I want to get into some of these specific pizzas because I got the book here. Great book, which you published yourself, right? I mean, you did all the work on this. You did the photos and
yes. It was through a publisher, but yeah, I wrote the book myself, and my wife actually did all the photography in the book.
That's awesome. So, we want to talk about some of those pizzas because there's a lot of creativity in here and some classics, but it seems like you would be an ideal candidate to enter the Neapolitan category. The question would be for me, and maybe we can explore that when we come back and we'll talk more about working specifically with the oven, is, would you be able to execute it in a different oven, not yours, not the one that you have, not your Ooni, but maybe whatever it is that they're using on the floor, could be another brand. And if you've had a chance to play around with that at all.
Yeah.
So that's something before you come back and compete next year, practice in somebody else's oven, because you don't know what you're gonna, they're not gonna let you use your oven, which would be cool. But I did want to ask you about Ooni. So they're there selling, they have a booth, which means they're trying to sell ovens. Are they selling ovens to the home baker, or are they now moving into the professional category, trying to get pizzerias also to utilize their ovens?
I think it's still very much targeted at the home pizzeria, the home pizza maker. That I think that's always been their target audience. But I think people have more and more started to use them a bit more commercially with like pop-ups, rather than in like a brick and mortar type scenario. I think a lot of people use particularly their gas ovens for pop-ups. But yeah, I think very much they're still targeting the home pizza maker.
So that's an interesting, because I didn't get a chance to get over to the booth. I spent the whole time at our table recording podcasts with everybody else, and I missed getting a chance to walk around the whole floor and seeing what was going on. So I didn't get to see that, those ovens in action. But I was wondering if they had any plans to build out to larger, maybe more durable, professional industry level ovens, or if that's not the business plan.
To be quite honest, I'm not sure. I mean, as an ambassador, we do get to hear about things earlier than the general public, but that's not something I've heard of.
Well, let's talk about that ambassadorship then, because there were I met at least 6 or 7 people who introduced themselves as brand ambassadors, for Ooni, which was impressive, because that meant they would really put some effort into getting the word out. I thought, a very ambitious marketing plan. What does it mean to be an ambassador, and how does someone become one?
So I became an ambassador after about a year after I started my journey, so to speak. So it's very much a case of you have to just be yourself through your Instagram or Facebook account, whatever it is you're running, and just be yourself. And I always had an ambition to do something in connection with the brand, because I liked them as a brand. I liked how the values they stood for and how they operated as a business. But I didn't specifically think, right, I want to be a brand ambassador. I knew I wanted to have some affiliation with them. So, like I said, I just was myself. I really like to help people with their pizza making, and especially people who are a bit earlier on in their journey than what I was. Like anyone I could pass on my knowledge and experience that I'd developed over the time. So I think they saw that in me and liked that.
So what are the obligations of an ambassador?
So when you basically have to, well, all they said to me was, really, is we want you to carry on doing what you're currently doing. We want you to help promote the brand and help as many people as you can. And there's certain, obviously, obligations you have to fulfill with promoting them across your social media and showing their products and stuff, and how to use them. But the message I got was, we want you to carry on doing what you were doing. Really, they just wanted to recognize the fact that I was doing a good job. Really.
You were already an ambassador, even if you weren't officially one, because you were using their oven and enthusiastic about what it is you were doing. So obviously they would love to have, your ambassadorships. Do they compensate you in any way for doing that, or did they help you with the book? What are the things that they give back to you as a brand ambassador?
Yeah, so as a brand ambassador, you get like a monthly, it's classed as a retainer fee.
Wow, nice.
For like the promotional stuff that you do for them, and to help get the word out. With regards to the book, the book isn't actually officially done with Ooni. It's an unofficial book.
But did they have to give you permission to use their name in the title?
Yeah. So because I was because I was a brand ambassador already and I had a contract with them, I had to gain their approval basically.
Yeah.
If I wasn't a brand ambassador, I don't think I would have needed to. I think you are allowed to do things unofficially. But I wouldn't have wanted to do anything without their say so and their
Really, it's a
approval.
win-win for them and for you. You get you get to do your book. They get basically free publicity, and because it's a beautiful book, it showcases them as well as you. Where are they based, by the way? Are they out of Italy, or where's Ooni from?
It's actually it originated in Scotland, so in
Scotland,
Great Britain.
really?
So,
I know very little about. I've my friends have them. I've had pizzas from them, but I didn't know anything about the company.
yeah, so their owners, Darina and Christian, are a married couple. Darina is Scottish and Christian is from Finland.
Oh,
But they developed the company in Scotland, and now, like, obviously they're all over the world now. They've got a big office in Texas.
no kidding! Wow, it's growing like crazy. Were they at the expo?
No, the Darina and Christian.
Yeah.
No, they weren't. It was just some of the American team that run the American side of it.
It's a pretty amazing story. I think it's got to be a story worth telling.
Yeah.
Maybe, are they working on their own book, or like sort of the official Ooni storybook, or would it be on the website?
They have got their own cookbook, but it's called Cooking with Fire. It's not really a pizza book. It's kind of like all different types of food and how and things like that, rather than kind of like where I've focused on it.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of those almost seems like a unicorn story of uh, uh, taking a simple idea and then having it blow up and become a global trend. And so it must be exciting to kind of be riding along with that.
Yeah, it's been a great journey so far. It's like I said, I've been an ambassador 2 years, and it's been really good. Obviously, the last 12 months or so I've been obviously heavily focused on firstly creating the book and then promoting it and getting it out there and releasing it. But yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
Well, why don't we take a little break? When we come back from the break, we'll get into the book itself, and we can talk about some of the pizzas you've created. So maybe talk about some of the techniques that you've either developed or derived from your research and your study. And you will dive into the Ooni Pizza Project book by Scott Deley, and join us in part 2 of our conversation with Scott when we come back. Welcome back to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt. I'm here with Scott Deley. Scott, you're in the UK, but where in the UK are you?
So I'm based in a place called Derby, which is very much in the Midlands, very much in the centre of England.
It must be a beautiful country there, huh?
Yeah, I'm not in the countryside really, but we are close to some really nice places where it's very picturesque.
Well, we've been talking about the book that you created, the Ooni Pizza Project book, and it's loaded with a number of recipes, including 4 different kinds of doughs, but also because it is clearly a result of your working in an Ooni oven, very specific to working in that oven. Let's talk briefly about the oven itself before we talk about the pizzas. So, of course, one of the things that seems to be part of the driving forces and the charm of this oven is that it's portable, it's small, it's very, the design is incredible. It's very, it's very, I don't know, contemporary, I guess is the right word to say, but I mean, it's here and now, and yet it works like a classic old style wood-fired brick oven.
Yeah.
And you're baking more, and you don't need wood necessarily to make it work though, huh?
No, depending on the models. I mean, they've got some of the models are gas only, some of them are wood or coal, but you can buy a gas adapter to use that. So they're dual fuel. So they're really popular because it gives you the option of one or the other. So really, It depends what you want. Obviously, one of the most commonly asked questions is what do I recommend? But the first thing I always say is it depends really what fuel you want to use. If you're not if you're set on using gas only, then I'd go along the gas only models. But if you're not sure and you'd like to try wood or gas, then the dual fuel models are really good for that because it gives you the option of both.
Well, so that in other words, you can like you can get some that have the ability to go both ways. You can go with wood or gas or a hybrid of the two.
Yeah, so that one you're on there particular, that's the Karoo 16, which you buy it as a wood charcoal oven, but you can buy a gas adapter to convert it to a gas oven as well. So that gives you the option of both, which is really popular.
And if you're baking in gas, I think a lot of people feel that, wood is so important because you can get the oven hotter, but can you get with the gas fuel alone an oven as hot as you can with the wood?
Yeah, the temperature range is exactly the same as if
Really?
you were using wood. Yeah, so I just find it using gas is a bit more convenient because it gives you like a more constant source of heat. You're not having to manage the flame.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're using wood, you've always got to have one eye on the flame because obviously, especially if you're making Neapolitan pizza, you need that roaring flame. So I think gas is quite more convenient and it allows you to focus more on making the pizza. So if you're new to pizza making and you want to focus on the pizza making, maybe gas is a good option to go down because what I found when I first started out, I started out with a wood fired oven,
Yeah.
and I found it quite because obviously making a Neapolitan pizza you're cooking in 60 seconds because of the
Yeah.
high temperature. And as a new pizza maker, you have to be careful. It can be quite stressful, like especially if you're making pizza after pizza, you've got to manage the flame as well at the same time as topping you. It can be quite a chaotic and stressful
Yeah.
experience if you're not
Exactly.
careful.
And the of course it's part of the fun if you're really into the wood fire cooking. Of course it's part of the joy of the whole process, but if you're trying to do it in volume or you're trying to manage more than one or two pizzas at a time and manage the wood, it's real convenient to be able to use the gas. Does it come with a built-in thermostat or do you have to use like laser readers and things like that to get it?
The new models that have just been released come with an internal thermometer, but yeah, you use a laser infrared thermometer to check the stone temperature.
And so it's pretty responsive. If you lower the heat, lower the gas, you can get down to the temperature you want in a relatively quick time.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I say, managing flame with the gas is obviously a lot easier because you can just turn it down
Are,
depending on the style of pizza you're making.
what's the capacity of the ovens as far as like how many 10 to 12-inch pizzas can you manage at once in there?
Oh, they're very much like one at a time.
One
So
pizza at a time.
the smaller models are 12-inch models, so you can get up to a 12-inch pizza, whereas the larger models are where you can get up to 16 inches.
But still just one pizza at a time. You wouldn't try to do two. Um, and of
No, I
course,
don't think there's capacity
again,
to do
because it's for home, mostly for home, baking, it's the enthusiasts were, although I have seen some people use them, as you said, in pop-ups or maybe on food trucks, like they'll put them on the back of a three-wheeler and just
Yeah,
fire them up, and make drive around with two or three of them so they can manage two or three pizzas at a time, but in three different ovens.
yeah.
So you must be having fun with yours.
Yeah, I love it. I generally do it because of working Monday to Friday. It's very much a weekend thing, really. So yeah, and I still very much do it just for me and the family, really.
Yeah, it's not a business for you. It's really just a
Definitely not.
passion project.
Yeah, because people often ask me like, can you see yourself opening your own pizza place or doing it for a living? But I like to be. I'm very conscious that if it becomes a job, then
Yeah.
you might lose the fun, exciting element out of it, and I really don't want to lose that. I've managed to maintain that for 3 years now, so I think I've got a good balance between. Obviously, I am making money from it, like through being an ambassador and doing my book
Yeah.
and
Well, that's it.
but
You've turned it into a side gig or a little
yeah,
we'll call
yeah,
side hack. But I think what seems to be driving the whole Ooni oven movement is that people are having fun with it. There's always this aura of people are excited. There's an excitement about this oven that seems to be that's differentiated it from maybe some of the competitors. At least
yeah. I think
at this sort of portable oven realm.
yeah, and I think it's the same with everything. It's if you're doing something in your own time, it's got to be fun. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and I think the pizza oven is very much. It seems, especially what I can see, it's kind of like replacing the barbecue. Like
Yeah.
more and more people are getting pizza ovens all the time and
We
dedicating with their families.
but we were talking, before we started recording about the fact that you're using your ovens for more than just pizzas. Obviously, we think of them as pizza ovens, but they're wood-fired or brick ovens that can be used for a lot of different things. So I know this book, your first book here, is really about pizza, but you have any plans to do a follow-up book that maybe says all the other things you can do with a small little portable Ooni oven?
It's just a good question, actually. I mean, I'm not sure whether there'll be a follow-up book or not. I suppose I suppose really it depends how well that one.
But what
How
are
that
some of the
one
other
goes.
things that you do cook in your oven?
So probably the main other one that I use the oven for is probably steaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get some really good steak. In fact, they're probably the best steaks I've had coming out of the uni oven using the cast iron pans.
I, have had the same experience with my wood fire oven, which is a Forno Bravo, but it's maybe better than any steakhouse steak I've ever had, are the steaks
Yeah,
that come out of that oven. Yeah.
and it doesn't end there. I mean, I've made so many different things in there. I mean, I've baked um, like banana loaves in there or skillet cookies, all different things like that, and everything just seems to be better cooked in there. Like no matter what it is, it just seems to elevate it to another level.
Well, let's talk about some of these pizzas then, because you put together a book. How many pizzas are there in this? I didn't do a head count of the number of
Uh,
recipes, but it looks like
there's
dozens.
45 recipes in total.
And that's pretty substantial number of. And does that include the doughs? Because you got 4 different pizza doughs.
That includes the dough. So there's four. I think there's 4 dough recipes and then just over 40 actual pizza recipes.
So I want to talk about the dough, of course, because I'm a dough guy,
Yeah,
but before we do it, just I'll jump ahead to that. The other thing that I like about the book is one sauce recipe that is simple, easy to do, and works on every kind of pizza. And I kind of feel the same way. When I came up with my sauce, I went, I don't need to come up with 5 different sauces, for repeat. This sauce works, and I can tweak it
yeah,
as needed. But so talk a little bit about your sauce.
yeah. So I mean, I like to keep. I mean, the recipe is called "Keep It Simple" sauce. I mean, and I think that's what I've learned over time. That there's certain things that you don't need to overcomplicate. They're better when you keep them simple. So don't get me wrong, I've gone down the route of adding all different herbs and cooking the tomatoes and doing certain different things, but I've always just come back to my simple recipe, which is a good can of good quality tomatoes, a pinch of salt, and I like to add some finely chopped basil, and that's it really.
That's it. Yeah. Do you
And
have a
what I've
particular
found,
a particular brand of tomatoes that you like, or I'm sure you're preferring a plum or San Marzano style tomato.
I find San Marzano are the best
Is that the
tomato.
brand, the San Marzano brand of tomatoes, or just that style?
Just that style, really. I've not got a particular. There's a good brand that we're getting over in the UK now called Muti or Mutti. I'm not sure how you pronounce
Yeah,
it.
yep. We saw them at the Pizza Expo. In fact, did you
Yeah,
get a chance to walk around and see all the different tomatoes on display at the Pizza Expo?
yeah. I spent some time walking around and trying certain things, but they're actually they do a can of tomatoes which has already kind of been reduced to a sauce consistency,
Uh-huh.
which obviously makes it even easier. I mean,
Yeah.
and they're a really good quality tomato as well. But I think the recipe that I've got in the book, it can be used as like a base, like a starter sauce as well. So I add on certain recipes, I'll have that as my go-to sauce, and then I
Yeah.
can add certain things to it. Like I actually like adding a little barbecue sauce in there and make it a tomato and barbecue base.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So is that one of the recipes in the book or one of the pizzas that call for that
Yeah,
adaptation?
there's a couple of pizzas in there that use that recipe.
And you have a marinara pizza also, which is without cheese, and that
Yeah,
one is starts with your basic sauce, but then you add additional herbs to it, right?
yeah. So with the marinara, I like to use the base sauce, and then I like to add finely sliced garlic, a sprinkle of oregano, and I actually like to use fresh basil on top as well, which some people will shout at me for. But I just really like the flavor it adds to the pizza.
Do you put that on before the bake or after the bake?
With that one, I put it on before the bake because I think it intensifies the flavor.
I read in your book. There was a trick that I read that I never actually had seen it before about the way to keep the basil green during the bake or how to protect it during the bake. Was it what was? Can you talk about what that technique was?
Yeah, so all you need to do is just have it for a short space of time before you're going to use it. Just put it in some salt water.
Salt water. That was that was the thing that I never heard before. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you put it in some salt water and then top use it, it'll prevent it from burning because obviously
Uh,
with the Napolitan pizzas, the temperatures are that high that you do have to be careful of things like basil burning and just setting on fire, basically. So
you put whole leaves, soak some whole leaves in salted water,
yeah,
and that protects it somehow.
yeah. So obviously, with if you're making a margarita, you would normally add the basil under the cheese, so it's being protected more. But obviously, with a marinara, it's being exposed to the full flames, so it does help protect it from burning.
So and now are these tricks that you learned just by doing, or how did you figure out this salt water trick for the basil and some of the other? You have a golden tomato pizza in the book that looks really spectacular. And where did you come up with these ideas?
Just picking up on from other people and reach. I mean, I don't claim to. I can't sit here and claim to have invented all these little tricks. I think it's just some of it is trial and error, but some of it is just piggybacking on what you learn from other people. Really, some because there's another one with the same recipe actually. It's like garlic. Instead of slicing it up and putting it on raw, then you actually just soak it in olive oil beforehand, and that coating of olive oil will do the same thing. It will protect it from curling up and burning.
I see. Well, I jumped ahead of the dough, so let's go back to talk about those. You've got your classic Neapolitan dough, which is I'm just going back through these here. It's just flour, 00 flour in particular.
Yeah,
Dried, very small amount of dried yeast. I love the fact that you're just really practically just putting a pinch of yeast in here and then just letting them ferment at room temperature, not necessarily overnight unless needed.
yeah,
Water and salt. That's it. So it's
yeah,
classic dough. Um, so that's obviously and the pizzas that are showcased that have the Neapolitan style pizzas have this beautiful leoparding effect in the coloration, nice puffy cornicione, and it's working. So it's long slow fermentation in the Neapolitan dough, but then you also have a New York style dough. So what's different
yeah.
about that?
Yeah, so the New York style, I actually use a blend of three different flours instead of just one. So yeah,
I have a photo of you tossing that pizza dough up in the air, New York style.
yeah, that's my New York. So yeah, I use a blend of three different flours with that. I use like a higher protein bread flour as the main part of the
Uh-huh.
main, and then I add a little bit of 00 just to give it a bit of elasticity,
I
and
see.
then a small amount of fine semolina flour just to give it a bit more of a texture and a crunch. So
So you actually put some semolina in the dough itself.
yes, just the fine semolina, just like 5% of that, and it just gives it a bit more of a bit more texture, really. So I played around with different percentages of the flours, and I found that that particular combination worked the best.
In the recipe for that dough, at the very bottom, after the salt, there's 15 grams of olive oil. Is that olive oil going in the dough, or is that used basically after the dough to keep it from sticking to the bowls and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
so with the New York dough, that goes in the dough.
In the dough, because
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's me reading it too quickly, but I couldn't find in the instructions at what point you add the oil to the dough.
So the dough, the oil goes in right after you've mixed the salt in with the
So it's
remaining water.
like the last thing that goes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
The very last thing before you make it into a ball and put it away for
So
fermentation.
So this gives you a stronger dough that allows you to be able to toss it and be a little bit more
Yeah.
aggressive with shaping it. And you also suggest putting a kind of a rim, building the rim into it as you shape it, rather than waiting for it to puff up on its own like you would with a Neapolitan.
Yeah, there's just slight differences in the techniques that you need with the different styles. So you're not with the New York dough, you don't want to start from the middle and push all the air out to the crust like you would with a Neapolitan. You want to form your rim first. So obviously you want a bit more structure in your rim. So there's not massive differences in the techniques, but there are small differences which
Uh-huh.
I believe you need to follow.
That's great. And again, I'm thinking a lot of these things you figured out on your own just by doing, but then probably also picked up some tips from either books or from videos and things that you've seen other people do.
Yeah, very much so. Definitely a combination of the two. The first book that I bought was Tony Gemignani's The Pizza Bible, which
Pizza
I
Bible, yeah.
yeah, so I learned a lot from that, and then just trying different things like with my Neapolitan um, pizzas. I don't follow the traditional Neapolitan slap method when stretching the dough out. I prefer to use gravity and have it over my knuckles, and it just works better for me. I mean, the
Well, I
one
was
thing,
glad to see that because that's how I do it myself, and it definitely goes. When I see the pros out there doing their pizzas, and they're slapping them, and I can't do that. I think you have
yeah,
to do that every day to get good at that. And so
definitely,
over the knuckle and hanging it, and letting gravity do some of the work, and using your thumbs and all that. I was glad to see somebody else, writing about that technique. So this is
yeah.
what
I mean,
happens when we figure it out on your own, because just to be clear, you've never worked in a pizzeria, right? I mean, like me, you are self-taught and figured it out just through the love of doing.
yeah, definitely, yeah. I've never worked in a pizzeria, and I think one thing I like to
This
say to
gives
people.
hope. It gives hope to all those people at home saying, "I've never worked in a pizzeria. How am I going to know how to do this? How am I going to shape my pizza dough?"
Definitely, and at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way to shape a dough. I mean, you do what you're comfortable with and what works for you. It's whether it's the Neapolitan slap or over the knuckles. At the end of the day, if you can make good pizza, it doesn't really matter how you do it. And I've just got back from Naples actually, where I attended the 1 day AVPN Neapolitan course,
Oh, wow.
and they obviously are advocates of the Neapolitan slap. And watching them, I just was blown away by how easy they make it look. And
Yeah. Yeah,
and
when
I
you do
did
it every day for years and years, you get pretty good at it. Did you
think
did
it
you
is.
see
I
anything
think
over there? Did you when you were over there in Naples, were you did you see anything that kind of just blew your mind, or some great takeaways from the experience?
Just really good pizza, really.
Yeah.
I mean that's ultimately what I went for. And I went to the AVPN course, which I learned a lot of. It was the beginners course, so I didn't. I just take. It was more about the experience, really, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant experience doing it alongside some of the best out there, really. So yeah, it was good.
Were you pleased to know that the pizzas that you've been making at home could hold their own against some of the pizzas you had in the center of the pizza universe in Naples?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Yeah, definitely, because I think one on the first night we got there, we it was quite late, so we just got a takeaway from one of the pizzerias, and I remember my wife saying something like, "Oh, this isn't as nice as yours," or this like.
Don't you love that?
It is very nice to hear those things,
Yeah.
and yeah, it makes it all worthwhile, really.
Well, I see you also have a Detroit dough. So
Yeah,
that style is like growing like crazy. And if you had come to Pizza Expo 10 years ago, you would have seen very little Detroit pizza. And then
yeah,
we watched over the years get bigger and bigger footprint, and now it's sweeping the nation and the world, I suppose. So
yeah,
what's different about that dough? I see you use, again, high protein flour, but you don't have any semolina in that, just flour, no double
yeah.
zero flour. Um, a fair amount of oil, and then a little bit of butter in the dough, right? Or the
That's not
butter in the pan.
that's for butter in the pan. So the Detroit dough in my book is aimed at um, someone who is like a new to pizza making, because I think Detroit dough needs to be a much higher hydration, which is obviously a lot more difficult to handle.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the recipes out there are 80-90% water, which is very different. So I tried to come up with a recipe for the dough which is lower hydration, so it's easier to handle, but will also give you good results as well. So I settled on the hydration level of 66% for that dough, which is higher than my normal Neapolitan dough, but high enough to give you a nice light dough as well.
Not a sticky dough, but more just a supple, tacky dough.
I
And
think,
and just looking to see. Well, we'll come back to we'll kind of work through and see some of the pizzas in the book made with that dough. But I want to get to this last one because this is one that not too many people know about. We call the Tondo Romana. What is a
yeah.
Tondo Romana dough?
So Tonda Romana is basically a much thinner, crispier dough, which is a lot lower hydration, which you actually use a rolling pin to get it nice and thin, which is a very, when you're doing it for the first time, when you're used to making Neapolitan pizza, it feels like sacrilege getting your rolling pin out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
rolling over that crust. But it's just a really nice, it's a much lighter pizza, but you get a real nice thin and crispy base.
It sounds a lot like what now is kind of the hot new trend, which is an old trend coming back in a hot new way, is what we call the bar pizza or the
Yeah,
tavern style pizza
tavern style.
in the
Yeah,
States. Yeah.
I
So
think it's a similar type of dough.
do you
And
see
actually,
these kind of pizzas in pizzerias in England?
not really. No, no, we don't see much of them, to be honest. And I kind of wish, since I released the book, the amount of good feedback I've had about that particular chapter in the book, I kind of wish I'd made it a bigger chapter now, because I think it's only about 4 or 5 different recipes, but
Yeah, I see 4 pizzas. Yeah, but still, you're at least you're on trend.
yeah, but it's because it seemed like a very popular part of the book. It seems to be, when people have got their hands on the book, that's the one they've gone for first.
Well, there's a lot of really great pizzas. I'm just going to quickly read through some of these, and if there's anything you want to comment on, because obviously the classic margarita, you've got something called the Sunshine Margarita, which
Yeah,
could you just briefly say what makes it a Sunshine Margarita?
Yeah, so it's basically using yellow tomatoes instead of red, which are just a slightly sweeter tasting tomatoes. So it's just something a bit more different visually, but it also you a bit more of a sweeter taste if that's what you like.
I don't see that many yellow tomatoes in cans out there on the shelves. Is it something that you have access to, or that we should
They
have
are
access?
they're not it's not something you can just go and pick up from your local supermarket. You've got to be looking more at like Italian suppliers.
Oh, I see.
So you can I think they're becoming a bit more popular, but you're not going to just go to the shop and pick one up off the shelf, really.
You also have a lamb kofta and mint pizza, well, lamb
Yeah,
kofta with mint drizzle pizza, which of course, I'm a big fan of Middle Eastern style foods like that. So it's a great idea to be able to use basically essentially kind of like a lamb sausage meat on
yeah,
there. Yeah,
yeah. It works really well, and it's like that particular recipe, like a lot of the other recipes in the book, is the ideas come from like meals that we have as a family. So we love having lamb kofta kebabs with naan bread and salad, and quite often I'll find myself sitting there eating a meal and thinking, I think this would work on a pizza. So that's where that particular idea came from, and it's definitely a firm favorite of mine.
so some of these pizzas are really just inventive pizzas that they're not something we're going to see on the menu of most restaurants, but things that you came up with just from
Yeah,
playing around with it, and
a lot.
translating favorite dish into a pizza.
Yeah, and a lot of them come from things like childhood memories. There's some like dessert pizza recipes in there, which
That's right.
and some of them are derived from like when I used to go to my grandparents' house. They made a lovely dessert like stewed plums and custard, and this is where all my ideas come from, really, like certain smells and tastes that I remember from childhood memories, and it's nice to be able to put them on a pizza and get them in on the book as well.
Exactly. Well, I love the fact that you're doing that. You're making that leap. Because look, that's how so many dishes are created, but also it just shows you what a versatile product pizza is, that you've got a blank palette, you
Yeah,
can canvas essentially that you can turn into anything you want. And you don't and while you've got, you've paid homage to the traditional pizzas, you're also kind of stepping out of the box. I think that's even one of your phrases on the back of the cover. Think outside the pizza box. And then
yeah,
and I love that you're doing that. A couple more I want to call out on. I see a fajita fiesta pizza in here. And then you're also doing you do a pizza with hot and creamy indulge, which is one of my favorite.
yeah,
I've just discovered it a few years ago, and now never can get
yeah,
enough of it. It's like you find something like that, and you go, I think your line was right out of my own head. Where has this been all my life? It's such a great
yeah.
product.
100%. I'd never ever heard of it before I started making pizza, and like now my freezer's full of it. I've always got it on hand, and that particular recipe, because it's such a hot like meat. It
Spicy, yeah.
Yeah, I use it with the burrata, and it works. They work together
Burrata.
so well, like because it's so creamy and it work. They work together so well. That's one of my favorites. That is.
Well, you got everything from Mexican street corn pizzas to a hot diggity dog pizza, pumpkin spice pizza, of course, mushrooms, a chorizo and fennel sausage with ricotta, New York style. I mean, there's like, what do you say, 40 some pizza recipes in here. It's very exciting. I think you've done a great job of putting
Thank you.
together a book that not only serves your ambassadorship of Ooni, but stands on its own as just a
Yeah,
great pizza book, that people can use no matter what kind of oven they're using, and no matter,
yeah,
and can make these pizzas in a home oven or whatever their favorite oven is. So congratulations on that. I know personally how hard it is to put a book together and to do
yeah,
it while you're doing your day job, and you don't have a pizza restaurant to pay the bills while you're working on this. basically working 24 hours a day. When you're coming home from work, you're working on your book. So
yeah, it's like it was just a case of like being clever with your time and blocking out periods of the day. I used a lot of my work annual leave last year to make the pizzas and get them photographed and spend time writing the book. But at the end of the day, to do something like this, you have to make sacrifices,
yeah.
and I tried to do it in a way that didn't affect my family too much, because I don't want to not spend any time with them at the weekends and stuff. So it was just a case of being inventive and managing your time well.
Well, at least they get to eat the fruits of your efforts, and and congratulations again. You've in a very short amount of time, you've gone from never making a pizza to being a brand ambassador for the hot new pizza oven to creating your own book. You've done a lot in a short amount of time, and kudos to you.
Yeah,
I'm glad we got to meet each other at the expo, and I'm really thrilled that we've had a chance to talk about this today. So Scott Deley, for people who want to follow you on Instagram, it's Scott's Pizza Project. Look him up there. And the book itself is called The Ooni Pizza Project by Scott Deley. Available, I imagine, through all your booksellers, right? They can get this on
yeah,
Amazon,
yeah.
any bookseller.
I've got all the links on my website, which is
And the website is
it's www.scottspizzaproject.com. So you'll find all the links wherever you're ordering from, whatever country. I've got all the links in one place to get you to
great.
wait.
Scott, that's awesome. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you at future expos. Maybe see
Hopefully,
you in the competition.
yeah,
Now that you've connected with Tony, don't be surprised if he tries to enlist you to join his Pizza Champions team and compete in Italy. Over the next couple of years. You never know where it's going to go.
you don't. You definitely don't.
But great work, and thank you so much for doing all this. Thank you for joining us on Pizza Quest today. You've been on your own Pizza Quest, and it parallels the journeys that so many of our listeners and followers are on. And thanks for sharing it and putting it in a book form as well as on social media. And keep up the great work.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. It's been really good.
Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us today on Pizza Quest. We will see you on the next episode.